Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. I'm Recurs, and before we get into the video I just want to point out for any of those guys who are wondering, Medal of Honor Frontline gameplay, the actual playthrough I'm doing, it's still going to come out. It's still going to come out in the next 2 weeks. I have it planned. The playthrough, it's a long playthrough. I think there's like 15 odd parts. But I like to diversify my content a bit, and so I pretty much want to talk about a potential new Medal of Honor. Yes, I've covered this a lot, and my recent video talking about this, I said about how I think maybe Respawn could actually be working on something. And so for the most part, I just want to talk about that a bit more and speculate on what a potential new Medal of Honor game should and could have, and we'll just dive right into it, I suppose. So let's start off with the fundamentals of a multiplayer. What a new Medal of Honor game should have to stand out. So the first thing a new Medal of Honor game needs to have is a strong campaign, okay? Now, Medal of Honor Warfighter didn't really follow suit with this. Medal of Honor Warfighter campaign was pretty lackluster, if I'm being totally honest with you, and I think the reason for that is because they were primarily focused on building a multiplayer experience. Now, despite what you may think of Warfighter, the multiplayer was actually really good. A lot of people really did enjoy the multiplayer. It just had a lot of bugs that were never ironed out because EA never saw the profits that they wanted to see with that franchise in that game. So they pretty much pulled the plug a few months after release, and the game was left in a state that they launched in effectively with no major updates. However, if updates may have came, who knows, the game could have been maybe like Battlefield 4 is now, where people keep going back and playing it. And the reason I use that comparison is because Battlefield 4, like Medal of Honor Warfighter, launched with a lot of bugs, a pretty lackluster campaign, but EA decided because they got enough profits and money effectively from the community, Battlefield 4 had more staying power, so they put a lot of assets and focus into making that game as playable as possible, and it's a great Battlefield game, my personal favourite in the series, but that's a story for another day. So, we need to understand what they need. They need to hit the nail on the head with the campaign, okay? Because whether you like the campaigns or not, or that is your goal, Medal of Honor pretty much needs a strong campaign. Unlike Call of Duty and Battlefield, where a lot of players pretty much flock to those games because of their multiplayer component, Medal of Honor has always been a storytelling game. It's always been a game that's heavily focused on a storytelling aspect because its own words are it wants to honour the soldier. So a strong basis of a campaign needs to be implemented here. It's probably more important for Medal of Honor to have a strong campaign than it is maybe for Call of Duty or Battlefield. So, like I said, our strike one campaign, you need to hit the nail on the head. Now the problem is, when it comes to a lot of these games, where do you go with the campaign? Because, realistically, in the last couple of years, we've had, futuristic setting games, we've had World War II games, we've had modern day setting games. The fact is, the market isn't oversaturated on a specific era or setting, because a lot of developers have opted to go different directions. DICE recently went with, a futuristic sort of setting with 2042. Call of Duty went into the past with Vanguard, then they went back to the modern setting with Modern Warfare. You can pretty much go all over the place, it's entirely up to you. It's not like 2012 with Warfighter, where pretty much the market was saturated with modern day setting games. It's entirely up to you. You can go anywhere with it. So if it was up to me, I'd personally go modern because I think it's the most you can play with. You can do a lot with the modern setting, and there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more of an audience acceptance when it comes to a modern day setting game. It generally sells a lot better than maybe a World War II game or a futuristic setting game. So I would pivot slightly towards the modern or a warfare setting. When it comes to the campaign, my last sort of view is this. They need to make the campaign realistic, but at the same time they also need to make it enjoyable. Medal of Honor Warfighter, and being not totally honest, probably 2010, took their campaigns way too seriously. Yes, they're trying to tell a cohesive story that's based on real world events, but at the same time you need to understand you're a video game at the end of the day. You need to sell because you need to make your money back. You want people to pick up your game because it's fun, and if you have a game that's too focused on storytelling and you forget a lot of the gameplay and how important they are, it can throw a lot of players away, and if you're much too serious, it really is a turn off. So I'm not saying you have to make it super goofy where people are, doing stunts or doing, flips and all that sort of crap, but you need to make it a game first and then a story second, is my opinion. It's just me, I could be wrong with that, but you need to find a balance. But if you don't really care about the campaign, if multiplayer is your primary focus, then let's talk about that now, because I feel like that's where a lot of people will pivot more towards Medal of Honor if a new game gets released. A lot of people pick this game up for its multiplayer component and what it does differently. So first off, let's talk about basic modes it needs to have. Team Deathmatch, Sector Control, Combat Mission, Hotspot. Those are the four basic modes that they sort of pushed with Medal of Honor 2010 and Medal of Honor Warfighter. Personally, I would like to see them return, so I would, because I think that they, are staples of those reboot games. And despite the lackluster reception those games got, a lot of people like the modes. So, like I said, it's not really anything universal. Combat Mission was sort of a take on the Battlefield game Rush. Hotspot was pretty much like Call of Duty's game mode Demolition, except instead of 2 specific targets, what happens is there's actually 5 targets spread out throughout the map, and the team that wins is the team that manages to get the best 3 out of 5. So if you're the team that's trying to detonate the explosives, you need obviously to get 3 out of 5 to win. If you're the team that's defending, you need to make sure that they don't detonate those 3 out of 5 to win within a certain time frame. So that's pretty much those 2 game modes. So it is obviously sector control is domination. It's just got a different name on it, of course. Team Deathmatch, everyone knows what Team Deathmatch is. Those are staple game modes that I think should return for a potential new Medal of Honor game. Again, you may think differently, but these are just my own opinions, okay? So those are the staple game modes. Let's talk about a few other game modes that I sort of came up with and had a bit of an idea with. Now, one game mode I came up with myself was actually a game mode called Drop Zone. Now, what this mode is do you guys ever notice in dodgeball, if you've ever seen a movie or if you've ever played it, the balls are lined up in a lane and you both have to sprint to get the ball? Well, I have this idea that what happens is both teams have to sprint to the target destination. They need to sprint to get these weapons. The team that picks up the weapons, obviously they use that weapon throughout a 2-minute duration. And the team that ends up holding that their sort of fortress for the 2 minutes, regardless of the weapons you have, they end up winning that part of the round. Then the location gets changed around to a different part of the map at complete random. The guns disappear and everyone has to sort of make another scattered attempt to get to the lane to pick up those weapons for the same cycle to continue. Again, it may be needing a bit of work and may not be the best explained in my opinion, but I think it could be a really cool fast-paced game mode. So it's completely random what weapon you pick up. You've just to run to the destination, pick up your weapons, and then you fight on that destination, holding the lane effectively for 2 minutes, and then the cycle repeats. And again, it's a best 3 out of 5 situation. So that's Drop Zone. Again, it's an idea that I came up with off the top of my head. You might like it, you might dislike it. I think it could be really cool. A game mode that I forgot to include whenever I was talking about the traditional sort of game modes was Free For All. I think Medal of Honor needs to have Free For All in it because the 2 reboot games didn't, and I didn't understand why Free For All wasn't a part of it. I think it could be a staple. So yeah, add Free For All to it as well. Another fun little game idea I had was actually the game tag, effectively. So what it is that one player at the start of the match is completely randomly chosen as the chaser, so he is, and this player has a grenade. Now, the grenade has a time duration, so it does, I'm thinking around maybe 20 seconds. Now, the goal of this here person is pretty much to run and get this grenade on someone else. It's not, you don't have to throw it, you just have to sort of melee them, and the grenade will stick to them, and then it's their job to try and get it off them. And then the longer it goes down, the more people you eliminate. So effectively what happens is you attach a grenade to them, you're free, you have to run away, they're now it, and then if they don't end up getting that grenade off them, they're blown up and eliminated, and the person who managed to stick the grenade to them gains points for it, okay? And it's as simple as it sounds, so it is, you guys. I mean, it's a quirky little idea, but you know, it's something different, I suppose. So that's tag. The next game mode I came up with was actually a game mode that I named Warfront. Now, what this game mode actually consists of is you and your friends or your team effectively building a squad of whoever to compete against other squads around the world. Now, effectively, people may see it as pretty much just esports, but it's a bit deeper than that because here's how I'm going to explain it. If you've ever played FIFA, you'll know there's a game in FIFA called Pro Clubs. Now, Pro Clubs effectively has you ranking your own creative player up so much so until he gets the highest possible rank and you compete against other players and their teams. Well, effectively, what you do is we're borrowing heavily from that. So you'll have a set number of slots, okay? And in these slots, you have up to 10 players. Now, obviously, if you and your friend are playing, that means 2 slots are already taken. So you have 8 teammates left. Now, these teammates can either be filled by your own friends or they can be bot players. Now, the difficulty is all automatically set to hard because you need to make it as far as possible. So what happens is that you can actually assign tactics for your squad so you can effectively, and you get squad-based points if the squad performs these tactics. It's pretty much a strategic, challenge sort of idea. It's, again, I've not really thought too much into it, but what it would be your team against their team and pretty much going head-to-head together. Now, you'll probably think to yourself, it just sounds like normal, TDM, but there's a bit of a twist here, and the twist is this. You actually choose what weapons your bot players run with or your actual normal friends run with. So effectively, in Pro Clubs, there's the position of a goalkeeper, a striker, midfielders, defenders, attackers, whatever. There's all these different positions. That's sort of taken with this game mode Warfront. So what happens is each team has a set number of slots available. So one team, for instance, could opt that they want 2 players to be snipers. Now, this is taken more like a traditional sense. It's strategic. Okay, you have to plan your attacks and you have to infiltrate the facilities and so forth. So what happens is if we have one player who is, say, in your team, he's selected to be the sniper, he has to stay in sniper position. So he does, okay, so he has a whole lookout view of the map, but he has to stay in that one place. He can't move because it's all strategic. He can obviously move to get out of the line of fire, but he cannot move himself. He has to stay within that radius of where he's allowed. You have attackers and then you have defenders, okay? Now, again, it falls under the realm of elimination. So because Medal of Honor takes the formula of 10v10, what would happen is you would have 2 slots for every sort of selected class in this game mode. So you would have 2 potential people using Assaulter, 2 using Spec Ops, 2 using Heavy Gunner, Demolition, and then 2 using Sniper effectively. Or you could change it up. Now, it's whatever way you change up is entirely dependent on you. Now, the problem with doing this on your own is that the bots are unpredictable effectively, like all sorts. But if you have a strategic team behind you, if you have a full set of 10 players behind you, you can make plans, you can set up tactics within the game itself. So if you want to be a squad that maybe is a bit more aggressive, you can set that up and select tactics. So let's say me, Recurs, you have it set up that Recurs is an assaulter, but he takes the position over more to the right and he defends X number of spots on the right. And if I fulfill that, I actually get points in one, staying in my position, and secondly, actually following through on the tactical plan that the team captain has set up. Whereas if you're a sniper, let's say I'm a sniper, and you tell me that I need to stay in the south part of the map, and I do that, and I pick off kills, again, the same applies. I get more points because I'm following the rules set out by the initial captain, but I'm also getting kills because I'm picking it off. This game mode is a time-based game mode, so there's like 3 to 4 minutes of each time that the person has to try and break through, but it's all to do with tactics. It's a much more tactical approach that you need to really sit down and plan out your tactics properly, so you have to compete against other teams. Now, before the game would start, what would happen is that the game would actually tell you a brief summary of your opposing team's style and what way they play. Are they more of a defensive team? Are they more of an aggressive team? Do they like the plant booby traps, etc.? What's their sort of overall play? And you have to sort of base your next approach based on the information you've been given. So let's say you're playing a team that's really defensive. Well, now you know that they tend to defend a lot more, so you can actually say, okay, Recurs, what you'll do is you'll go to the right, but you won't be aggressive, you won't be, loud, you won't be throwing grenades. What you'll do is you'll actually be using this class because it might suit that, a much more laid back class that's a lot slower, a lot more methodical, a lot more tactical. You'll be using that class, and if I follow through on that, again, I get points for it. So it's all to do with a technical approach to it is as a team. And this is the good thing about the bots. The bots would actually follow through on this, so they would. If you haven't got enough players in your team to play it, what happens is it doesn't fill you with just random people, so it doesn't, this is your tactic, so it is, this is your team, you play this the way you want to play it. And that's why if you only have 2 players, what will happen is that the rest of the team will be filled with bots. The good thing is though is that the bots follow suit on the tactics that you set up to make the game much more controlled, we'll say. And that's sort of the idea of Warfront. It's borrowing heavily from pro clubs, but I think it could work really well, so it could, especially if it's expanded on. Again, these are brief summaries, guys, because I don't want to make this a super long video, but these are just something I think that you could add to this game to make it stand out. So borrowing heavily from FIFA yet again, here's an idea that I had, okay? So again, going back into pro clubs and career modes, you get these things called skill trees. Now, skill trees pretty much mean that if you add something to pace, your character, your creative player will run a lot quicker. It'll just be faster pretty much. Well, I think you could actually implement this in an FPS game. So if we look at Call of Duty has perks. Now, perks are a Call of Duty asset. They stay in Call of Duty, always have sort of stayed in, even though they've changed them up a bit. Perks have always been in Call of Duty. My idea is that in Medal of Honor, you could actually have a skill tree similar to FIFA, but it's obviously laid out differently. So if you're going to use an assaulter class, let's just use that as the example, what would happen is your skill tree would have like 5 tiers of recoil and 5 tiers of stamina, pace, strength. It would pretty much be a lot similar, and within every game you would effectively get a choice what you want to unlock. Do you want to unlock weapon attachments, or do you want to unlock more points that will go towards your skill tree? And at the end of the match, whatever you've chosen, let's say you've chosen more points to go towards your skill tree, you'll obviously get your XP, but what will happen is that your skill tree will get points, and then you can assign it to whatever you want. So if you're going to be using a, let's just say, LMG, because these are really heavy weapons, what happens is that you can put more skills, you can put like so many points on recoil, like tier, the first tier of recoil, you can put that and get that done. Then there's up to like 4 more tiers that you can effectively use and jump to. And if you have, all 5 tiers maxed out on recoil, you'll have no problem with recoil. The problem is, however, is that there will be other assets and skill tree parts that you don't have on. So you might be really slow, or your character might reload a lot slower, or you might be really loud, or there's stuff that you really need to think about what you want to implement on your soldier to really get the best out of your own performance. And I think this really gives the game its own identity. It separates it because every player would have a different set of skills on. Not every player's skill tree would be the exact same. Some people may go for a much more faster, sort of approach, which means their soldier will be a lot faster. But he may have terrible recoil. It's all dependent on what you put on skill tree, so it is. And I think that could actually work really well as opposed to maybe something like Call of Duty's perks. And Battlefield doesn't have anything like this. So you effectively are creating your own sort of style of soldier in the game. But those were a couple little ideas that I had, guys, about a potential new Medal of Honor and what I think they should do, and some ideas I think they can implement. Again, these are all my own opinions. You could hate these ideas or you could completely love them. It's entirely up to you. I might do a part 2 on this because there's a lot more I want to add to it, but I don't want the video to be super long. So I'm going to do a part 2 on this in a couple of weeks. If you guys are interested in my Medal of Honor Frontline playthrough, there'll be another video on that next week. I've also recently started playing Medal of Honor Pacific Assault. I'm really enjoying it. There's a video coming out about that. And yeah, guys, this channel, I'm trying to make it as, spread it as possible. I'm trying to, get as much different things surrounding Medal of Honor as possible because I love the franchise. I think there's a lot of potential with it coming back, maybe. May not, it might be, but we'll wait and see. But other than that, I've been Recurs. If you like this video, please leave it a like. If you dislike the video, of course, leave it a dislike. It's entirely your choice. Other than that, have a nice day, guys. Thanks for checking the video, and please remember to subscribe, turn on notifications for my next upload. Peace.